I adored the OnePlus 12, but now the 13 is here, and I'm not going to lie to you, it feels like this one is a bit of a backwards step to me, and that's what I want to talk about today. We have to start by talking about what made the 12 the phone of the year for me last year. It did the basics well, like the high-end performance, a design I really gelled with, 2-day battery life, the great alert slider, and stupidly fast 100-watt charging with the charger in the box, when every other phone was omitting it. It also did the extracurriculars fantastically, namely the superb camera setup, the ergonomics, the pricing, hell, even the software was good last year. The 13 though, it changes it. It has a revised design, a seemingly worse telephoto camera, and I'll talk about that at great length later. It loses the charger in the box for some regions, including Europe, and has had a $100 price hike to boot. Let me make this abundantly clear from the off. It would be great if you could like and subscribe. No, but the OnePlus 13 is far from a bad smartphone. It is absolutely rapid because it has the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip and loads of RAM, so yeah, if you're a gamer or someone who spends all day on your phone, this thing is incredible. Elite by name, elite by nature. I cannot fault how fast this phone is. That said, I've had zero performance problems with my Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 equipped OnePlus 12, but of course being a OnePlus it should probably have the latest and greatest, so that's fair enough. But I'm going to get right into why my SIM card has gone back in the 12 and isn't staying in the 13. To start with, this new build might appeal to people who like flat sides, and that's fair enough, it seems to be what people want, but this implementation is just straight up worse ergonomically for me because of the sharp chamfer and the sort of lip on the back of the phone that just makes it feel like maybe a slight design flaw, maybe a QA problem, but overall it just doesn't feel that nice in the hand. The Oppo Find X8's softer edges, though still relatively flat, are far nicer in my opinion. But it is what it is. And you know what? I don't love the pattern on the back of this thing, but that's admittedly me being picky and it's a more of a subjective thing. The texture is pretty much the same as what we had on last year's phone. I love that OnePlus kept the alert toggle on here. Thank you so much. You could have turned it into an action button, but you didn't. You left it there. Props to you for that. But let's rip that plaster right off. The telephoto camera is a weird one. I shoot the majority of my smartphone photos with the 3x periscope camera on the OnePlus 12. You'll notice that the 13 doesn't seem to actually have any periscope lens. Instead, a more standard looking 3x setup. And I don't think it's naturally as sharp as the periscope either, which means that the camera system leans a lot on software processing and makes images look worse to me. They look less filmic, they look more fake, maybe that's the best way I can put it. The telephoto camera just feels worse right now. And even when I disable that AI zoom thing in the bottom corner of the camera app, things don't change whatsoever. I'm not sure why that button's even there. What's weird is that on paper, this is the 3x telephoto that is also in the Oppo Find X8 Pro, and I really like that one. So surely it's software. Don't call me Shirley. I pray to all the deities that might or might not exist, do not make the 12's camera as bad as this through software updates. Please don't. I don't want it to look like this. Otherwise, the main camera is actually really nice, though again, the colors don't seem to be the same sort of filmic setup that we had with the 12, so surely there's a post-launch patch that comes in and fixes some of this stuff. I can't comment on what's not released, and I haven't signed an NDA to not cover anything else. I have to review what's right in front of me. For me, this camera setup is still decent, but seems like a bit of a backwards step over last year, which just sort of rubs me the wrong way. And as you know, if you watch my videos, I love smartphone cameras, so if it's going backwards, it's not going in my pocket. It sort of has me worried long term though, not just with OnePlus, just against all phones. I had suspicions early on that when AI got good enough, so to speak, companies would start substituting good hardware or hardware innovations and improvements for AI, and it looks like that could be the case here with the long range camera lens, which has me really worried. AI is not it, chief. Ugh, bad taste in the mouth. But that's not all. Fancy spending $100 extra for your OnePlus flagship this year and not get a charger in the box depending on your region? Yeah, this isn't ideal. Look, I understand that this is possibly due to the profit margin shrinking due to pricier components like that Snapdragon 8 Elite chip that's meant to cost more this year. I know it's more complex than it probably is on the surface, and to be fair, other phone makers have also been putting their prices up in the past year or so, so it's not a totally isolated incident to OnePlus here. There have been some genuinely noticeable improvements this year. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is a bad phone or worse in every single way, because that's just not the truth. The battery has been significantly boosted to 6,000 mAh, which makes the 13 a 2-day phone for me every single time, and that's excellent. The 12 was already fantastic on battery life, but this has a well over 10% improvement. It's brilliant. And paired with the charger that you now have to buy separately, although I just used the OnePlus 12 one, this handily demolishes the battery performance for Samsung, Apple and Google. They are all worse than this. The in-display fingerprint scanner is now ultrasonic, and it is way better than the optical one from last year. It's quicker, it's more accurate, it's more reliable, it's just better, there's no other way of putting it. The buttons are also incredibly tactile, way more than I was expecting, and that helps the build quality. And the display is tremendous. It's basically the same size as last year, but far more usable thanks to the flatter overall edges. Don't get it twisted, I don't think that curved displays are better overall, but the ergonomics of the rest of the chassis tend to work better when the displays are curved. One exception to that rule is the Oppo Find X8 Pro. It is tremendous to feel in the hand, and it isn't that different to this, but just different enough that this just doesn't feel quite right. But the panel is sharp, it's bright, it's smooth, it's one of the 13's best attributes for sure, and you will not be disappointed with the OnePlus 13's display. Pairs great with the performance chops for gaming, in HDR it gets crazy bright, it's just a phenomenal panel. It's not a nitpick, but I do find it annoying that this is the default size for smartphones these days, 6.6 to 6.9 inch displays. The Pixel 9, if they made a OnePlus 13 the size of that, would go crazy, and it's not an unwieldy form factor at that size. The 13 is pretty average for a flagship, and you know what, given that this is made for performance users, power users, however you want to say it, it makes sense that it's this big, but it's just going to rule it out for a lot of people who don't find a phone of this size viable, which is totally true. Another thing hampering the OnePlus 13 in Europe is that the Oppo Find X8 Pro exists, with the same display, very similar battery life, and charging, the same 4 cameras, plus a wicked 6x optical periscope, and for some reason better colour processing on its cameras as well. It's much nicer feeling in the hand, with better side rails, very similar CPU and actually better GPU performance, the high wattage charger in the box, and it costs about £150 more. If it was me, I'd either go Pixel 9 base model or Oppo Find X8 Pro, but I don't think I'd go for the OnePlus 13. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think for most people, if you already have a OnePlus 12, that's the better device overall, which is now on discount if you wanted to buy it secondhand or just refurbished or just straight up cheaper than when it came out. And I think the base model Pixel 9 is the way to go for most people. The Pixel 9 is just such a good phone, it's my go-to recommendation now. But very quickly after they aced the OnePlus 12, they followed it up with something that falls down the recommendations list for me. It's a very good phone, but despite me having access to this thing, probably for the next year or longer, in my possession, my SIM is going back in the OnePlus 12, it's not going in this, which is a real shame. I am not calling the OnePlus 13 a bad phone, it's not. It's a very good phone for someone who wants a rapid device with great battery life and an impressive display. It's just not the one for me this year, and I'm fine with that. The OnePlus 13 in my eyes is a backward step, or a bump in the road, for the great trajectory the company was on. A real roll with the 11, stepped it up massively with the 12. It's just a shame that things couldn't have kept going that way.